Although flying a drone is also really fun. Our office has a drone and it's really fun to shoot shots and line that all up and everything. Okay, so I am recording. So I was thinking about this, where is that parking lot? Right here. That I made into a lake last time, into a pool. You have so much more power in these 3D programs like Google Earth Pro to give a better version of it. I mean, there's the one I did in Photoshop. What kept bothering me about it was, what bothers me about this is I have to sign it every single time.
Do you have to use the same site for all of the assignments, or?
No,
Okay.
what I want you to do in total, I want you to learn this software and I want you to create some pieces that you could put in a portfolio that would impress a future employer or a future client. So you could switch every single time. I won't really care one way or the other. If you pick one and you do all the assignments on that one, then you might end up with 4 or 5 good images that you could show in a proposal, and that might just look better as you're explaining it. Like, okay, here I did this, and then here's a shot that's explaining how the streetcar comes through, and here's a shot that's explaining how people come through. So there could be some pluses to just staying with the same site, but absolutely nothing that keeps you from doing that. This thing starts not. Still. So let's go back to this. Okay, so what I liked about this image was we could get the pool in there. What I don't like about it is it's such a small part of the image in there. And there's some things we could do about that. If I wanted to enhance it, I just kept thinking, man, we're just from like an eyeball view. So it looks like water and it looks like we've done all this stuff, but it's such a small part of the thing. So one thing to consider when you're working is the ability to crop. Now, Photoshop has a cropping tool right here. And cropping is when you're a real artist again. You're saying, okay, how should I shorten this up so that it makes it really clear what, okay, thank you. So it makes it really clear what it is I'm trying to say. Do I really need this whole bottom part of the street? Bring that up like that. Do I really need all that much of the building on that side? Maybe bring it over like that. You can move things around. So when you're using the cropping tool, it's this little tool right here, or the letter C, and then you grab these tabs and you move them around. And then you can also just grab the image and move it around as you're using the crop tool. And it's important, I think it's a key part of just saying how much information do I actually need to get here. And if I eliminate all of this other stuff, then it's much easier to see the lake, or what I've created. And then I also don't have to worry about photoshopping all the other stuff out. You know, I was getting rid of all the other stuff that was on there. So often with cropping, you can solve a whole lot of the problem. But you want to get, you have these cross lines here and here. These are, when you're setting up artwork, the brain sort of perceives things in threes with artwork, or it likes things like that. So if you're doing some artwork, it likes to have a major thing happening at the third line, and then a second major thing happening at this line, and then something happening here and something else happening here. That's over the years, since the 10,000 years ago, we've slowly learned that something that the brain likes about that. So what I'm doing with this one, I'm lining up this building right here along that crop line, and I'm lining the horizon basically with that line right there. And that theoretically, according to neuroscience, will make a more satisfying image. What I would like to do too, just to give some context, if I have it just a little bit over here, you can see that it says Priest Drive, or it's not Priest, right? It's something else. It says the name of the street right here. And so I like, okay, I think that might be a little useful, so I can just pull this over a bit that way, that way. And then the other thing I want to do that also makes things more satisfying, with the Google image, you can see that things are a little bit angled in. Buildings are sort of leaning in a little bit, and I'm going to want to correct for that as well. So let's start by cropping right here like that. You just double click on it to get the crop right there. Then we go back to this back image. I'm gonna use the transform tool that we've used before. I'm gonna use it to stretch out the top. So, but I want to grab all of the layers. So if I click on layer one is locked, so I'm gonna unlock that. Click on layer one, and then all of them up to layer 6, and then Control T for the transform tool. Now I can start adjusting the image to make it more straight. Control R will bring out the ruler. That's Control R. And then you can grab in the ruler and pull a guideline over and make sure that you're getting your lines really straight. Oops. So I just reach over here into the ruler space. I just grab in it and pull over here like that. And that will tell me, that'll give me a guide so I can make sure that I'm getting these very straight. And then I hold down the control. I'm just trying to get that line really, really straight. That one really straight. That. Okay, I think that works pretty well. Once I'm done, I can just move my guidelines back out of the way. You can keep them on there. They won't print. They're just there for the image. Then if I pull up the crop tool, I can check again. See how it's all going. So now I'm going to pull over just a little bit. There. It's actually close enough, I don't think it'll matter, but we'll go over a little bit like that. But let's say I want to get that right on that crop line. If you hold the control button down, so Photoshop likes to snap. Most graphics program like to snap. They'll just kind of jump a 1/4 inch or some preset thing. In Photoshop, if you hold the control button down, then it won't snap anymore. So you can do a more fine adjustment like that. So I can pull that over like that. Okay, I like how that goes. I can see the name of the Packard Drive street over here. Still got to get rid of these cones, this mess of cones right there. And now I've got another problem. When I stretched the top of it out, it left me this little bit of stuff right here. That's fine. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm always going to work on a new layer. When I'm bringing something in, I'm going to use the clone stamp tool again. Make it a tad smaller, and then grab just right here and just clone stamp that piece away. Then just grab a little bit of the tree. Just enough that doesn't really matter. Okay. One more thing that I'd like to do. So what did I do here? I used the clone stamp tool to get rid of a bunch of stuff up there. I want to adjust the colors to this a little bit. So I'm going to come back to layer 2 is my layer that I've been clone stamping on. I want to get rid of these cones. So I'm going to do the same thing. We'll go back with the clone stamp tool. Make sure I've got all layers on. If the clone stamp tool is ever not doing anything, it's probably because you have current layer on instead of all layers, or even current and below. So just keep that in mind if you're like, wait, why doesn't it grab anything? Why doesn't it do anything? The other reason it wouldn't be is if you don't hold down the Alt key first and get the little target site, then those are the two main reasons something wouldn't work. So I'm just going to grab from over here and stamp away that. I need some shadow. Smaller. Going smaller is just using the right-clicking on the mouse to bring up this little chart, which lets me change the size. Then we'll find Google likes to drop in these little marks in it so that they can tell that you've stolen it from them. So same thing, I like to use the clone stamp tool and get rid of those whenever possible. Get rid of this guy. One thing to know is it doesn't have to be 100% right, it just has to look right. I'm gonna grab a bit of that shadow right there because that's going to be the closest thing to it. A bit of that shadow right there. For the rest of the car. So you're basically just looking around the screen and trying to find, okay, where's something that I can clone stamp from and do a basic copy that doesn't look super obvious. And then I don't know what was going on right here. This might even be something that's from the photo, but I don't like it, so I'm going to clone stamp over it. Sometimes something that's there looks fake, and so you have to like fake reality a little bit on it. What's going on there? Oh, that's where the car is, huh? I got the whole sidewalks in the wrong spot. Well, we could try with that one. Let me try just grabbing this whole thing and using the transform tool. Maybe we can stretch it down a bit. And clone stamp. You got some kind of sharp lines right there that wouldn't really exist. Those a little bit. Okay, something about like that. There's a few other things that we'll mess with in a minute. Okay, so now I've got this layer that has everything I dropped over it. This layer, which doesn't seem to have anything on it, and then my layer down here. What's layer 3? Oh, that's the little. Layer 3 was my original spot for the water. So I'm gonna move that down, or move that up. That's probably down, it's probably this guy that gets moved down. Okay, so if you'll remember, I made a mat. That's what this little black box is over here. That's where that piece of water is coming from. You can move the picture, you can move the mat, you can move them separately. I'm gonna move the mat down. And you can see, so like that whole image of that lake is still behind there, but it's only showing through where the mat is. So get that line back up where I wanted it. So, okay. I could clean it up a little bit more. There's still some power lines here that I'd like to get rid of. We might have to get rid of those in a minute. But I'm going to take from layer 3 down to layer 1. I'm going to grab all of those, and Control E will now combine them all into a single layer. So now they're not different layers. They don't move around on top of each other. It's all one layer, which is that background layer. And I'm going to do that because now I'm going to start editing the color. I want to just kind of pop it up a little bit. Google Maps kind of fades everything when it takes its photos, probably to save data or be more readable on a phone or something like that. But I want to up that. So I'm going to go to under image, you have these adjustments. You can adjust the brightness, contrast, the levels, the curves, and the exposure. Levels and curves are basically the same thing. Curves gives you more power. But like if I was to do levels, what it's doing is I could say, okay, I want everything that is very bright to go to complete white. That's what that does. So this is giving you a chart of showing how many pixels closer to white you're seeing. And if I pull this little thing over, now it's everything that was close to white is now pure white. So if I was to go all the way, everything goes to white. And then the same with dark. If I pull this whole way, then it's just making them black. It's making everything that was, oh, that door lock. Does that. And then if you grab this one, it's pulling the midtones. It's making things more pale and more dark like that. And what I'm trying to do is get it more, you see if I start pulling the midtones over, now it starts looking a little bit more like reality, where it was right here originally. You see how faded everything here is in the background. When I pull it this way, now it starts looking more like a real image. And then the opposite too, if you have an image that's really saturated, you can desaturate it with these two pulls down right in here. Okay, so the one I'm going to just do is just pull this one over to get that background. What I really want is some really nice strong blue from the building up in here. And I want the mountain there. When I brought this tree in, you see the tree came in with all its colors. It wasn't saturated. Now I'm trying to get some of the darkness from the tree to be similar to the darkness of the image to be similar to the darkness of the tree. I'm trying to make it look like this tree is actually there. Whereas before, you see how that tree really looked stronger, darker. It was brighter and darker than everything else. So this is to get that more in line. Like so. And now I probably want to do something similar with my lake image. And I'm going to try, let's see, lake image, this is the photo, and this is, okay, so this, let's label these. That's the lake, and this is the reflection. So I'm going to start, I want to make this just also pop a little bit more. So I'm going to start with the reflection, the levels. Control L brings up the levels, by the way. And I'm just going to do a similar thing. I'm just going to pull it over so that that reflection is a little bit stronger. Like that. But I still, it's a fine balance of trying to make it look like water or not. So, okay, I think that looks a little bit better. least looks more realistic. Then I'm not a big fan of this sky. For example, the Google sky is usually pretty boring, and the power of a sky can really have a huge effect on how good an image looks. So one of the best things Photoshop is taking out skies. I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool. I'm going to make sure I'm on layer 3. I was on the tree layer right there, so when I did the Magic Wand tool, it grabbed everything but the tree. Control D is your deselect tool. I use that all the time. I'm going to come back down to layer 3, and I'm going to click on the sky. And because I have contiguous turned off, it's just grabbing all the blues within a certain range, similar to whatever pixel I clicked on. I'm going to turn contiguous on, because it's going to be a little tricky that because the blue of the building is reflecting the blue of the sky, this is always going to be a little tricky to isolate the sky from the building. So when I have contiguous turned on, it's only the pixels will have to be touching each other. When it's turned off, it's just going to grab any blue anywhere on it within a certain range. If contiguous is on, then it has to be touching another pixel of color. So grab that little piece, grab over here. I'm going to come back and clean this up in a minute, so I'm not worried too much about the building. It's grabbing some of it, but more I just want to be sure I get kind of all the way down this area, down in here. Letter Z lets you zoom in, and you do a lot of that. The space bar turns your cursor into a hand, which lets you move around. So as you're zooming in and out and working on it in more precision, it's really useful to just do the hand. That's why when I'm using my keyboard, I always have my thumb on the space bar. Okay, back to the wand. Holding down Shift to grab all of this stuff right in here. Okay, I'm going to run into a problem because the side of the building blends completely into the sky right there. And got to grab that little bit of sky right there. I'll clean that up in a second. So this is a little perilous because of what it's doing right there. But what I could do is just switch to the polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to hold down Alt now, and you see that little negative sign shows up. So now I'm going to do a little trace right here, but instead of adding to it, it's going to subtract from it. Oh, except I was already picking the subtraction, so I got to go to the opposite. Shift adds and Alt subtracts. So what I actually want to do, I'm grabbing the blue sky right now. So I'm going to hold down Shift and come down right from here to here. Grab that there, there. Get it up to here. Try to make it straight. Double click. Okay, so now I've grabbed that whole piece right there. And then I can do a similar thing on this side of the building here. I want to take this off. I can come over here and over there, double click. Now I've got that straight right there. And this one here like that. I just got to get it out somewhere. Okay. That's a little bit better. There's a little bit that I missed up in here. I can always just hold down I can use the marquee tool and just grab big chunks that were missed before. And I think we're going to run into, it looks like some of this light thing is already picked. But I kind of don't like where that light thing is anyway. So I might just let it go. I might just delete it. Okay, so I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to come to Internet. I'm going to do the highest res images are wallpaper images that are designed to go on the back of your screen. Sky, clouds. And we'll go to the image search. And then we have to pick something that looks real, isn't too amazing. Like that would probably be a little obvious that it was fake. And that one would be a little too obvious it was fake. That would be super obvious it was fake. But we want to pick one also where, usually I try to find one where the horizon is low. You have to see the clouds kind of getting smaller and smaller at the bottom of it. Let's see if we can find a good one. And then the reason I do wallpapers, usually the wallpaper ones, they're free and they're high resolution. So that's why I often choose those. So this is 1600 by 1200. If you just hover the cursor over there, it tells you that. Let's see how it looks. And oh, okay, so it's actually ties me to a much bigger one, which is even better. The higher resolution, the better. I'm going to, let's try just copying it. Copy the image. Okay, it's going to paste in there, but I need to save this area that I've already done work on first. So I'm just going to create a new layer and just fill it with any color right here. So now I can always go back to that layer and grab that piece, and I'm going to deselect it. Now I'm going to paste in this sky. It's going to be way bigger. So I'm just going to shrink it down, pull it over, shrink it down, trying to get it to fit on the screen. And then if you're trying to be more accurate, I'm going to try and get the horizon line of this image about the same place as the horizon line of that. And then I want to make sure that it fills up everywhere. That's over there. That seems pretty good. Double click on it. And now if I go back to layer 8 was one where I saved that color. From that, now I'm going to go back to the Magic Wand tool. I'll select that color again from layer 8, go down to layer 9, and then create that mask. And if I turn layer 8 off, now layer 9 is on right there. Now I can disconnect it by clicking that little chain that's right there. And then I can adjust, I can move it around, I can adjust it. And same thing, I'll play with the levels of this. Usually when I bring a sky in, I like to brighten it up a bit and darken it just a bit. Make it beautiful. See, now it's a beautiful day. Okay, you can see now I've got some kind of crusty stuff at the top of the building. That's just the way the mask was made. So I can always go through and edit the mask. The mask is black and white. So I can switch to, what I want to do is get white. And I'm just going to use the brush tool. You can see if I go over it, it's bringing those clouds through. It's making it see-through. I'm going to take the hardness maybe to about that, take the size down. And I'm going to click it right in here. I've got the opacity. When I was messing with the brushes earlier, I turned the opacity down. I'm going to turn that back up to 100%. And I'm going to kind of lightly tap the bottom of that and hold down the shift key. That lets me do a straight line. Sometimes I'll go over it several times until it looks like it matches without having that. Okay. It's pretty good. Any questions about this so far? Following along? Okay, let's do a few more things to this. We've got a really strong shadow coming across here. The sun is back behind us, hitting pretty hard. And I want to put some people in here. The best way to make it look like something is real is to bring people. Oh, and we have to get a streetcar in. No, since that's the whole point of this thing. I wonder if we can find a streetcar in Google Maps. Why don't we just find one driving by? you were to try to find one, where would you go? Somewhere on Mill? Yeah, so this is gonna be a test. Was there a point where a streetcar was driving by when the Google car was driving by? One right there. Okay, and how does that compare? So it's not exactly the right angle. Do something about that. I don't know if we can get a better angle of it. No, you can see, if you've messed with Google Street View, like you'll click once and it'll suddenly switch to like a year later. That's what it just did. You see, it just suddenly, or a year earlier, like that building disappeared. We went from one to the other. Okay, so I'm gonna want this streetcar to be right here. And well, let's see what we get. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit to try and get the higher res image of that. And it's got streetcars that have this all overhead stuff. Okay, so let me zoom. Like that, okay. Now I'm gonna use Windows Shift S and maybe I'll grab some more stuff just in case I need it. I'm gonna grab that whole piece right there. Paste it on here, Control T, shrink it down to get it close to the right scale. You have to do a little manipulating over here. You can see just how small the cars are over there. I might fake it just a little bit, make the streetcar just a bit bigger so you can tell what it is. But I can sort of say, okay, a car to scale, there's this car, there's that one. I can use those to kind of estimate about what the scale would be, maybe somewhere right about in there. Something like that. I'm gonna grab, just gonna get the streetcar itself, maybe its shadow as well. Copy that, paste it, turn off the other layer. Put that streetcar in there. Actually, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna undo a little bit. I wanna do it bigger than that. So I'm not gonna have it as far back as that car. I want the front to be kind of like right over here so that we're seeing it really well. Maybe I'll just try adjusting it like this. Same thing, I'm gonna crop, I grab it out like this, copy, paste, and then hide the previous layer. And then I'll use the eraser. Streetcar is kind of flat and blocky, so it's easy to just kind of crop out, take the hardness up. Okay, just erase all the rest of that there. I'm gonna end up, I want it closer. I'll probably end up getting rid of this light post as well because I don't want to see that there. Okay, so I've got the front of the streetcar, and arguably, if it was in this lane, arguably it might be about that size. I need to drop it a little bit lower, maybe put it behind those bushes a bit. But then the perspective is wrong, right? The streetcar is sort of floating on its side in this image. So I'm going to take my marquee tool. I'm going to grab about where it starts to curve, which I'm seeing is maybe right about here. Then Control T for the transform tool. I'm going to grab this middle piece, holding down the control button, just shift that down and stretched up a little bit so that it's, you know, it's a big blocky square, so it should be similar in maybe diminishing a little bit, but you've got this piece of the building that's going that way and should be stretched out more. Like that. Also seem to have sped it up quite a bit, so doing that. All right, so that's not very good. Let me go back to when I first thought put it in. Okay, so what happened here was I started with it small, and then when I stretched it, it really kind of distorted the pixels and got this very blurry thing like that, which I don't want. So what I'm going to try is starting again from the beginning where I have a whole lot more image resolution, and I'm going to try adjusting it from there and then shrinking it down. I'm going to go back to when I first pasted it in, nice and big, and I'm going to grab the streetcar at this point. Don't worry about the shadow yet. Copy that, paste that, hide the layer behind it. Get over here. Now I'm going to stretch it out first, but I only want to stretch out that part of it. And I'll try and adjust for the perspective. Okay. Now I'll go to my eraser tool. Pop that out. What I'm hoping is once I do it this way, it's gonna shrink, and you're gonna lose some of the resolution as it shrinks. But that's okay because all of it will lose resolution at the same time. Okay, so now if I transform it, shrink that down, put that streetcar over here. Okay, you see now it's not a big blurry mess like I did it before, like there was before. Now I can just do a little bit more adjusting on the back piece of it. Give it some lines like that, maybe a tad. So keep it stretched out. Okay, I think that works. It's got the same problem. It's much brighter than everything else. So I'm going to have to do my layers, Control L, and get it looking more like the same saturation as everything else in the image. Maybe I'll pop its highlights a bit. I do want it to show up, so I might just brighten it a little bit more than it normally is to get it to show up better. And then it's going to be here. So what I'm going to do, I want to get it behind some of these plants. Maybe I will keep that full there. So I'm going to go back to layer 3. That's my image layer. I'm going to grab this chunk of plants right here. Right here. I'm going to copy and paste those, pull them up on top. And now I'm going to erase the planty or the road kind of behind those plants, just drawing over that like that. Now, if I move my streetcar down, it's got the plants coming out in front of it. And then same thing, I'm going to go back to layer 3. I'll grab this little piece of pole, copy and paste that, bring that up front on top. Maybe just turn the hardness down a tad. Just give it a little bit of a softer edge there. And streetcar is layer 11. Now, because I've put that set of plants in front of it, I can adjust it. I can move it around a little bit. And I can probably even transform a bit just to get the angle better. So to me, this looks right because the top of it is following the angle of this piece of the building. We assume they're both flat, so it should look like that. That's what kind of makes it work. Perspective. Okay, so we've got a streetcar. I'm gonna pull up the levels just one more time and see if I can make it. I want it to be bright. I want it to stand out, but I want it to look realistic too. So there's just always a little bit of adjusting back and forth on that because we're artists. Okay, I think that's gonna work. Save your work as often as possible. Control S saves your work. I think everyone will have a day when they've been working on something for 3 or 4 hours in Photoshop and then they forget to save it and then they regret it. So challenge you to save quite often. I want to get rid of this light. It's just sort of in a lousy spot. And he is there because, why? Because we made a matte for that sky. So I can go back to layer 9 is that matte for the sky. And if the white is what's covering, so if I go to white, I go to the brush, I can just paint white over where that light was and he'll just disappear. And maybe I'll just get rid of all of them. They're there, but I don't like the way they look. Okay, let's get some people. So, it's now pretty easy to find people against white background. Google image search, found a lot of that. But we're going to try to find one thing to keep an eye out for. If the people that you're putting in were taken, with the photograph is taken indoors, the shadows are all going to look super fake. So often I'll try to find something more like this, where it looks like they're outside and they're moving and doing things. That seems to be pretty good. See what happens if I click on it. Okay, well, I think I can probably grab some of these people. Window Shift S, and I'm just going to grab these people right here. Try them. Bring it over here, paste them on there, and whoops. I'm going to just put some people walking along the sidewalk here. Maybe we'll even try putting someone like way in the foreground, see if that makes it more interesting. But we're going to do a similar thing that we did with the tree. We've got this white now, so it's really easy to just knock this out using the magic wand tool. I'm going to turn the tolerance down to like 2. That's not quite enough. I'll make it 15. Yeah, that relatively grabs most of them. And we'll start with this little boy right over here. Got a little bit of a shadow in there, so I'm just grabbing all the white spaces. There, I'll delete that. Delete that one. Okay, now I'm going to grab this little boy. Okay, the guy is kind of too close behind him, so I'm going to go back through. I'm not going to use the marquee tool. I'll use the polygonal lasso tool. And around. Just need to be careful right there. The rest of it, I don't have to be quite as specific. Copy and then paste him. I'll turn off people for now. This little boy right here. He is a very large boy right now. So we will shrink him down to How big is he? No, about like that. Now, what I want to do too, so he's just sort of floating there. We can tell that there's some really strong shadows hit him. So I want to make a shadow of the boy. So I'll change this to boy. And here's how I'm going to make a shadow of him. So I have the boy. If I hold down the Alt key, you see I get that little white arrow behind the black arrow. That lets me drag out a copy of him. So now I have an exact copy of that boy. I'm going to do Control. I'll deselect, and I'll drag the marquee tool around him. Once I've dragged the marquee tool around him, if I go back to the select tool and hit one of the arrow keys, that marquee will like shrink wrap to just right where that little boy is, right there. Now I can take this as boy copy. I'm going to just switch my color to black, and I'm going to fill I can use fill, it'll fill the entire thing with, or it won't. We've added a new. Just want it to fill it completely. All right, that doesn't work. So I'm going to go to the brush tool instead and make a nice big brush and just paint everything black, then deselect it. That's going to be the shadow. I'm going to move boy copy. I'll make it boy shadow instead. I'm going to move it down below the boy. Now his shadow is there behind him.
How can I help?
I don't know, whatever you want to do. And now I'm going to take that shadow and using the transform tool, I'm going to hold down the control button and just grab this here and try and make his shadow angle similar to how these other shadows are angling so that he matches in. And then I'm going to scoot his feet over so they match up about where that goes. Double click on it. And then these shadows, you can see they're a little bit softer and they're not quite black. So then I can go and I can play with the opacity a little bit to get it so it's similar to here. Or I could even, if I was to go back a couple steps, this might be a smarter way to do it. I filled in with black, but maybe it would have been smarter to use the eyedropper tool and grab this color gray and use that instead for the boy shadow. So I've made him, now rather than black, I've made him that gray. Yep, that's there. Now, using the transform tool, take it back. That, adjust it to get that there. And then I will, I'm going to go to a blur. So under the filter, you have all these different types of blurs. I'm going to use a Gaussian blur. Just, it lets you kind of mess with how blurry or how not blurry something is. And I want to get it to where he looks like it's a similar blur to the other stuff around. Okay, that's the boy. The tree should also have a shadow. I can do the same thing. I can drag out a copy of the tree. The tree is on a lower area, so I'm going to move it up top. Take this tree, do the same thing. But I think there's another way I could do this even faster. If I go to the layer styles, I can do a color overlay. Yeah, so I can just, I don't even have to grab them and do all that stuff. I'll do a color overlay. I'll click on the color in here, and I'll eyedropper some of this gray from over here. I'm going to move the copy back behind like that, and then do my transform. Get that tree doing a similar shadow, similar angle. Double click that, mess with the opacity a little bit, and then make sure that I'm lining up the bottom of the trunk with that, and then put on my blur, my Gaussian blur. I've got my tree shadow as well. Yeah, that was a whole lot faster. Okay, now we've got one kid. I've got all the rest of those people that I can put on. I've got the streetcar on. Got all these other people. We could put some, if we wanted, we could put some on the other side of the street. Make some smaller ones. You always want it to look like there are just several people walking around having a good time. And maybe we'll grab this gentleman right here. Copy and paste that, hide the thing again. Maybe he's just gotten off the streetcar and he hasn't seen his grandson for 6 years. And tell that little story. So I'm going to put him over here. They're walking together. I'm going to do that to kind of get the size right. Okay, so what I'm starting to realize is there's no sidewalk right here. This is all like gravel. So maybe I'll quickly mock in a sidewalk. I've got some sidewalk over here. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool to come across. And this will also help me fix that piece of the street there. Tree, I'll have to figure out what to do with the tree. Maybe it's going to be in one of those little metal things, cagey things. Cross like this. Grab that piece there. I create a new layer. Here I'm going to use the paintbrush and I'm going to eyedropper some of the color of that. Just paint some sidewalk like that. Control H will hide these little marquee lines. The little ants that are walking around it, Control H will hide those. And if I look over here, the sidewalk isn't all just one color. I just grabbed one color of it. So I'm going to go back to paintbrush. I'm going to grab a bit of a lighter color and maybe I'll just add some kind of imperfections to the sidewalk here and there. So it doesn't just look like a photoshopped. Hard this down. Over maybe get even back there. Okay, now the problem is the sidewalk is in front of the people. I'm just going to move it down a couple layers until it's behind. Where's my little boy? Oh, he was way down. I'm going to move the boy in his shadow up. Top. Okay, and then we've got this guy here. He needs a shadow as well. Do the same. We'll call this. So let's do the same. We're going to do a cover. Well, we're going to make a copy of him first. And then do a cover color overlay. Put that copy behind him. Control T. that's grabbing the side. I don't want to grab the side. Something funny is going on when I'm trying to do the transform tool. It's grabbing this whole bottom piece. A little bit strange. I'm going to try doing the marquee tool around him. That's grabbing the sky. Grab that. Okay, that seemed to work. Grab that, transform it. Push his shadow down. But you'll see the shadows are a little different because of the way the photo was taken. No, that seems about right. All right. That is how you Photoshop something. Get it on there. Could probably do something around that tree. Where is my sidewalk? That's the tree. That. Create a new layer, and this I'm going to use the elliptical marquee tool, and I'll grab, because I want to do one of those round things that goes around the tree. And maybe I'll just start with dark metallic color. Get that in there. And go back to the tree and use the eraser tool. I'm just going to erase because the tree is kind of coming up out of that metal thing. So I'm going to erase the root structure, the roots right in there. Grab that, and you can use the layer properties again. I want to make it look like it's got a little bit of a thickness right there. So I'm going to do a drop shadow, but I'm going to make the drop shadow lighter. Yeah, so it looks like it's just kind of got a little bit of some thickness on it right there. And I realize now I put my man right in front of my streetcar. Scoot him over a little bit so that it's right there. Okay, any questions? Anyone getting hung up on trying to do any of these different things we're doing? Starting to get a little more comfortable with Photoshop. Still don't quite like this, whatever's going on right here. So then once you get to this point, you have to say, okay, is there anything kind of distractingly fake looking? I think this whole shadow is a little annoying. I might just go back and use the clone stamp tool. Get rid of it completely. We mess with the layers or the levels on that tree just a little bit. Get that looking a little bit more. All right, well, that's what you'll be doing for your assignment. Pick your site. Show what you're thinking of doing along it. And probably gonna need a streetcar added to it like that. So you can pick your site from here. You could also go through if you wanted to do something a little more drone shot looking. Come and do it in Google Earth. When I do Google Earth, I always like to have the horizon like so. And same as when you're working in Google or in the Maricopa Maps, you can turn off the some of the things. I think you can turn the streaks off. Let's see. I want to turn off. You see they've like added some little color to that right there. Roads. There we go. So we can turn off the roads like that. Get it to look a little bit more like a real photo. And if I was to do it, I would want it'd be great to get a mountain in the background. Great to get the lake in the background. At least some of it. So maybe I would start from here. Grab like that. Google Earth actually has, I think under options, under tools, you can use photorealistic atmosphere rendering. So currently as it blends into the background, it doesn't turn blue. But if you come under Google Earth Pro and under tools and options, you can switch that on. Click OK, and it should start re-rendering it, or it just blasts you in outer space. That's the other option. Yeah, there we go. And now it's actually adding the blue shift of things when they're farther away, the atmospheric shift. So that'll look a little bit more realistic. Grab this. And I can take that into Photoshop. And you'll see too, the colors get all kind of weird when they go through that. You can also, so I was showing you the colors in here. You can go through and change the channels. You can do everything at once. Or you can go and say, I'm going to go to the blue channel, and you can turn the amount of blue up or down. So you can really have a lot of control over the color. Try and get it, currently it was like this. It seems pretty blue to me. I'm a little colorblind, so I'm never quite sure, but I feel like if it was, we need to drop out a little bit of the blue to get it to look more realistic in color. So you've got those options as well. And the other option would be under image, under adjustments, there's the curves. Curves just gives you more control than levels. So you can you can grab it and adjust it and make the highlights stronger and lower. And you can do that for the different colors too. Wanted to drain the blue out of kind of that area, but still keep it. Some of the other areas you can mess around with it like that. But then it would be a similar, if I was gonna put the water right in here, it would be a similar thing as before. And we could try, I could go find a lake or a big body of water and try and mess with it that way. Or again, the layer styles gives you all sorts of power. We could try that pattern overlay before the water. We could do that inner shadow, make it look like it's got some depth pretty easily. Do that. Mess with the opacity a little bit. And then maybe what I'd want to do here, I'm gonna use the eraser tool. That angle just looks a little funky right up in there. I'm just doing a quick one. So layer 2 has just that image on it right there. I'm going to create a copy of that layer, and using the marquee tool, I'll come around it, and then I just go to the move tool, hit one of the arrow keys that surrounds it like that. I'm going to hide it, Control H, and now I'm going to go to the brush. I'm going to make a big, soft, white brush and give it kind of a highlight to make it look a little bit more like it's a body of water. It doesn't take very much, but you see you can get a pretty quick highlight like that. And it starts looking a little bit more like the sun is hitting something that's reflecting on it. And then we wanted to get something a little reflective. See if we can get this piece of the building. That upside down, and I'm gonna have to skew it this time. Let me move it up layers. Because now the angle is different. So if you're doing it from a 3D image like this, I have to mess with the reflection using the transform tool to get it to be closer to the right angle for that. And if I grab here, that reflection piece, yep, make a mask, and just turn that down. Put it behind that in front. And probably I need to erase a little bit of this. Just fade that off a little bit. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We will, let's get this, get these designed, get your stuff photoshopped for Monday, and then we'll start looking at Illustrator. There's some things Illustrator's going to do that will make this a whole lot easier. Everyone's working hard. Good. You're all in right brain mode. You're all thinking really hard about it. You're all doing it. Fantastic. One of the things that I'll be showing with Illustrator, to add the streetcar right here would be pretty tricky in Photoshop. It'll be a whole lot easier to do it in Illustrator. So I'll be doing that in Illustrator and then just bringing it into Photoshop. And it's going to make the streetcar thing a whole lot easier. All right, we'll see you guys Monday.